So my name is Jitendra Bafna, and I am working as a principal architect for the API Zero. So okay, so we will going to cover what are the different API security provided by the MuleSoft, and like what is the dedicated load balancer, and how we can set up the mapping rules on the dedicated load balancer, and what is the difference between dedicated load balancer and the shared load balancer. Okay. The first thing, what why we want to secure a API. So basically, it's very, it's very important, it's to secure our API. So like nobody should access your API without any authentication or anything. If you exposing your API to the third party, to the any consumer, so they cannot they should not able to consume that API directly. Okay, because this may leads to many, very vulnerable attacks, anything. So if you are not setting up any API security on the top of your API, it may leads to many issues, like many, many problems. So basically, let's consider a scenario. So basically, some bank has exposed the API over the internet, and like you haven't set up any security. So anybody can able to access your banking APIs. If you are not able to, if no authorized user or bad actor trying to access your API. So it is very important to to secure your API using any authentication mechanism. MuleSoft provide various authentication mechanism. We will going to discuss in the further this webinar. Okay, so to avoid the vulnerabilities on your API, you need to make sure your APIs are enough secure and they are authorized. Okay. Apart from that, what are the best API practices, like when you deployed your API on the cloud hub or on premise? So what is the best practice? So first thing, it's always, it's better, and it's a better practice to enable the OAuth security on the top of your API. Yeah, there are various other authentication mechanism, like you can provide the basic authentication where username, the password. You can provide the client ID enforcement. You can provide the various other authentication mechanism, but OAuth is more secure, so as compared to other authentication mechanism. When it come to securing the anypoint platform, so if you want to restrict access outside your organization or anyone, so you can use the identity management. So basically you can enable the identity management. So we will going to see the demo on this both too, so how we can enable OAuth and how we can enable the identity management for your anypoint platform. Apart from that, you can apply rate limiting policy. So why we want to apply the rate limiting policy? Rate limiting policy is basically used to restrict a DDoS and DOS. So that is the distributed dedicated denial of the service and denial of the service. So basically it's a distributed denial of the service and the denial of service. So basically, what is difference between DDoS and DOS? So basically, DOS means like one particular bad actor will try to send lot of requests to your API, which can make your resources into a hanging state. So distributed denial of service means like the request is coming from multiple sources. So like somebody, there are multiple bad actors sending the request to your API. Okay, so to avoid this, we can have a policy like apply a rate limiting policy, IP, IP blacklisting, IP whitelisting, JSON XML threat policy. Okay, these are the policies which can avoid this type of attacks, denial of service attack. So it is always, it is always good, your when you expose your API, it should be your transport layer. So it should be TLS version 1.2 compliance. So it should be TLS version 1.2 compliant. So we want to make sure like your API is secure at rest as well as at transit. Okay. So basically enable multi-factor authentication. You can enable NFA. So whatever, apart from that, there are various policy like JWT validation policy. So we will see that policy also. Okay, and always it is good practice to renew your whenever you apply the client ID, or client enforcement ID policy. So it's good practice to renew your password, within the certain period of months or something like that. So you can set the expiry dates. Okay, apart from that, like your all sensitive data like password, Okay, and see, you have a properties file when you are deploying your application. So for each application have a some properties file, and those properties file contain some confidential data like passwords and the other thing. So it is always good practice to encrypt those password, okay, before storing to any properties file. Okay, so apart from that, MuleSoft provide various digital signature, to secure the transport layer between client and the server. You can enable the two-way SSL, handshake security. Apart from that, you can use Mule encrypt processor. It's a part of security module to to encrypt data or entire payload. Any question here, like any question or anything? Okay, so let me go further. So what are the different MuleSoft API policy provided? So basically, there are various. One is client ID enforcement. So where simply you provide the client ID and the client secret. So that whenever anybody will send the client ID and the client secret in the request, so we will going to authorize on the basis of that. Then you can apply rate limiting policy. Then you apply spike control policy. So that is throttling. Then you can also apply rate limiting as SLAs, JWT validation policy, IP blacklisting and the whitelisting, JW XML thread policy. So basically, IP whitelisting and IP blacklisting, either you can whitelist list of IP address which are allowed to access the API. And apart from that, even it's good practice to always use the IP blacklisting, where you can blacklist some black actor, so they are not able to send the request to the your API. It needs to be stopped. So such kind of policies can be used. Apart from that, JSON and the XML thread policy, where this is also one of the good policy where you can limit the number of attributes, number of arrays and number of iteration in the XML. So such kind of thing can be restrict using this JSON and the thread, JSON XML thread protection policy. Then we have a OAuth access token enforcement policy. Okay, so we will see that. So any question here? Any question? Anything like? So let me go ahead. Now let we will start with something called OAuth. So basically, there are various OAuth providers which was supported by MuleSoft. So one of the OAuth provider is like Okta, Ping Federate. There is a OpenAM. Apart from that, it also support AWS Cognito using GWT validation policy. It also support OAuth 0. It also support Windows Azure OAuth policies and everything. So basically, AWS Cognito is nothing. It's a simple user identity and the data synchronization. Uh, you know for, it's a service, okay, which help you to secure your data when when somebody send the request on your API, right? And if you want to make sure what the request is coming on your API, it is coming from some good actor, not from the bad actor. So in that case, what happens, we can make use of like something called authorization code or the client credential. So it provides the multiple grant types. So authorization code, client credential, it also provide so there's a one more like implicit grant. So such kind of thing can be used. I will show you. So I will tell you. So there are various providers like Amazon, Facebook, Google also supported AWS Cognito. Okay, and this is like AWS Cognito is nothing. It's a standard-based identity provider with support identity and the access management standards such as OAuth, SAML 2.0, and OpenID Connect. So I will tell you. So using AWS Cognito, you can achieve client management as well as identity management. So it does both client management as well as the identity management. So as I mentioned, it support various grant type, client credentials, authorization code, and the implicit grant. Okay, so these are the various use cases where you can use the AWS Cognito. So basically, if you want to secure any or scalable any user directory, so you can use there. So basically it can be used for any, like if you want to integrate it with any third party. So let's take the example. So basically you are going to any website, and you are logging to that particular website using Facebook account. So that is possible, right? So that is known as the identity management. Then it also provides the standard based authentication. It AWS Cognito can be used with AWS resources also, and it can be easily integrate with your APIs, your application. I will show you. So let's understand what is the authorization code grant. So this is very important. If you understand this slide, so your AWS Cognito, it this remains same for all the provider. So let's understand. The first thing what happens. So we have to generate a client ID and the client secret in AWS Cognito, and we need to provide to this particular client. Now what will happen? The client needs the authorization code. Okay, so client will send the request to the AWS Cognito authorization server. Okay, it will send the request. In request, it will send the client ID. It will send the callback URL. So where it can return your authorization code. Okay, it will send to the AWS Cognito authorization server. AWS Cognito authorization server will validate this client ID. Okay, if the client ID is correct, it will redirect to the resource owner. So in this case, the resource owner will be the AWS Cognito only, because so resource owner is nothing where our username and the password and everything get exist. It's a user directory basically. So in this case, AWS Cognito itself is a resource owner. So it will do the redirect to the AD provider. So where you go and put your username and the password. So this AD provider or resource owner will validate the password and username. It will send the message to AWS Cognito authorization server. Everything is okay. Okay, and it will send the authorization code to the client. Okay, so it send the authorization code to the client. Now what happened? The client has to generate the token or access token or JWT token. So client will send the authorization code plus client ID and the client secret to the OAuth/token URL to the authorization server. The authorization server will return a token. Okay, now we got the token. Now we will send the actual API request to the resource server and the with the authorization token into the authorization header. So your bearer token must be in the authorization header when you are sending a request to the resource server. The resource server will validate this JWT token using AWS Cognito JWT claim validation URL. So it provide one URL. So on this URL you can validate it. Then token is successfully validated and return data to the client app. Okay, so this is how this happens. So I think people will have questions here, so just let me know if any question here. Any question? Okay, so somebody want to explain it again, so I can do that. So let me share it again. So let understand, like there are various actor or various actor in this whole scenario. So first thing, the client who will initiate the request with it will send the client ID to the /OAuth2/authorize URL to the AWS Cognito authorization server. Correct? So client authorization server will validate the client ID. Once the client ID is validated, it was successful. Then it will redirect to the resource owner screen where the user or client will put its username and the password. Okay, the resource owner will validate the username and password. It will send the success response to the authorization server. Now the authorization server will send the authorization code to the client on the callback URL. So in the first step, we provide the callback URL as well as the client ID. So authorization code will be sent on the callback URL to the client. Okay, now client will send the authorization code plus client ID and the client secret to the token URL to get the token. Okay, that token is nothing, it's a bearer token or JWT validation token. Okay, now client will receive a token. Then in seventh step, what happened? The now client has to send the request to the API. So we have to fetch the data now. So client will send the request to the resource server. So resource server is nothing, it exists in the MuleSoft API manager. It's a your cloud of application. What? So it send the request there. It will the resource server will validate the token using that AWS Cognito provide one URL. Okay, once the token is validated successfully, it will return back the data. Okay, so this is how this is the authorization code. Okay, like AWS Cognito authorization code. Okay, any question here? Okay, the question is like how to register to the AWS Cognito. So basically, like AWS provide the service. If you like, if you are like in the AWS cloud, there is a service called AWS Cognito. Okay, so like you can make use of that service, and like okay, you can make use of that service to generate the client ID and the client secret. You can go and create like AWS has a concept of creating the pool, so user pool. So you can create the user pool, and that user pool, that user pool, and under that user pool you can define your client ID and client secret. You can, I have published some videos and all those things, so you can go through that. So how you can register in the AWS Cognito and generate the client ID and the client secret. See the difference between authorization code, the authorization, see there's a two step. Okay, if you see in this, there are the two steps. Let me show in the screen. So there are the two steps. In the one of the step, we have to generate the authorization code. See the first step, what happened, we are validating the client, we are authenticating the client. Okay, so where like we are making sure the request is coming from the correct user. Okay, now when we send the authorization code back from authorization server to the client, now again the client want to generate the token. So what the main use of the token is to get the access to the resource. Okay, so that we can get the authorized to the resource. So that is the reason we send the request to the Cognito after getting the authorization code to generate the token. Okay, so here we are doing authentication as well as authorization. Okay, so that's why we have a two steps, like first generate the authorization code. Okay, once authorization code has been generated, then generate the token. Yes, like your question is like generally we generate the client ID and the client secret. Okay, client ID and the client secret. Yes, that is correct. But in this case, no, because this is the separate service. Like this nothing to, like it's outside the MuleSoft. If you are using the client ID enforcement, rate limiting, and anything, right? So in that case, you can generate the client ID and client secret from your developer portal. But there is a one option, like if you are using the OIDC or dynamic client registration. So if you are integrating your, like access management, or sorry, your MuleSoft platform with Okta dynamic client registration, in that case again you can generate your client ID and the client secret from the developer portal. But here we know, like AWS is a different service, Cognito is a different service, and the exchange. So that is the reason. So you cannot generate a client ID and the client secret in here in the developer portal or exchange. It is not possible for AWS Cognito. Okay, so you have to go and generate in the here. See, you mentioned like how to link that with AWS Cognito. It, see, basically we are not, like MuleSoft is not validating the token. We are sending the request to the AWS Cognito for validating the token. Correct. So the client ID and the client secret all exist on the AWS Cognito side, not on the MuleSoft. Okay. Now, other, there's a one more thing, like we have seen the client credential authorization code. So now we can see there's a one other thing, which is the client credential. In this step, we don't make use of resource owner. There is a no use of resource owner. So basically, this is mostly used for, client management, and the previous one authorization code is mostly used for the identity management. But you can definitely use that for the APIs also, authorization code. Okay, so let consider now client have a, again client ID and the client secret from the AWS Cognito. The client will send a request to the AWS authorization server directly to the token URL. This time there is a no concept of authorization code and the redirect where you can put the username and the password. Okay, it will simply send to the token URL, and the token and the client ID and client secret will be validated, and it will return back a access token. Okay, and this access token now we will directly send into the to the resource server in the authorization header. The resource server will connect to the AWS Cognito to validate the JWT token, and this token was validated successfully and return data to the security to the client app. So there is a one difference between authorization code and the client credential. In authorization code, we have to generate the authorization code. There is a one extra step where we are authenticating as well as we are authorizing. Here we are simply authorizing the resources to the user or to the client. So any question for authorization code and the client credential. Okay, so let me go with Okta and we will see the demo on Okta. Okay, so basically Okta. So Okta is a similar, similar to AWS Cognito. It's a also third party provider. Okay, so it also support various authorization code, client credential, and the implicit code. But we will see this two authorization code and the client credential. Okay, so what we can do? Let me move ahead. So and see, I've already mentioned there are various OAuth provider: Okta, OAuth 2, OIDC, Ping Identity Federation, OpenAM. Okay, there's a one concept, dynamic client registration. So somebody asked me develop we can generate the client ID and the client secret from the developer portal. Yeah, it is quite possible if you are using the dynamic client registration. So there is a concept called OAuth dynamic client registration. I will show you on Anypoint platform. If you go to Anypoint platform and if you go to access management, okay, under access management you can go to client provider. Okay, add client. So here you can use like OpenID Connect Dyna. So if you provide all this detail, okay, and you linked your policy with your API, in that case you can generate a client ID and the client secret from the developer portal. But if you are not using the dynamic client registration and you are simply directly using JWT validation policy, in that case what happens, you have to generate a client ID and the client secret in on the provider side, not on the MuleSoft side. So in dynamic client registration, what happen, I will tell you. So when you try to create client ID and the client secret, okay, from the developer portal or the exchange, it automatically get registered at the client, at the provider side also, and in the MuleSoft contract also. Okay, so that is what you can make use of dynamic client registration also. So let's see. Any question here? Anything? So somebody asked me how we can provide the callback URL. So basically, callback URL, there's a parameter called redirect underscore URI. So when you send a request, let me show you on the notepad. Okay. So like this is my authorized some I will say AWS you know cognito.com/auth slash whatever, like authorization. This is my authorization URL. So you can use like redirect URI is the one parameter, and this is common for everything. Here you can pass your HTTP whatever URL, and you can like localhost 8081 slash callback. This is how you can pass it. Okay, and like apart, then you have to pass various parameter like client ID. Okay, whatever client ID, like whatever so this so this is how you create the request for generating the authorization code. So what will happen, so once you send this request, so you will get the authorization code like this. Okay, so on the callback URL, the code equals to something like this. So this will be the response back from your authorization URL. Got it? What is the client provider? Can you have a more than one OAuth provider now? Choose one. See, we can have more than one if it okay. But when you are doing the like when you are setting out dynamic client registration whatever, so you can have it one. Okay, so I can okay, but we can definitely have a more than one provider, OAuth provider. So now I will show you Okta. So Okta flow is similar. Okay, so it's a similar where again the client will send the request to authorization server, and authorization server will redirect to the Okta screen where you put the username and the password. The user will get authenticated. Okay, and once it get authenticated, it will send the authorization code back to the client, and the client will again send the authorization code and the client ID and the client secret. It will validate and return the JWT access token. Okay, and again it will send the bearer token in authorization header, validate JWT token, and token validated successfully, and return data to the client. So it's the same flow, just the provider get changed. Okay, instead of AWS Cognito, the provider become Okta. So rest of the thing remains same. Okay, and this is how the client credential flow for Okta also remains same. So like just the provider change, like again, like in this step, like we have removed the resource owner, we don't require the resource owner for the client credential. We simply send the request to the token with the client ID and the client secret. The token will send response back with the access token, sorry, the token URL will response back with access token, and then we can send that access token in authorization header to the MuleSoft resource server. The token will be validated. Okay, and the token successfully validated and returns data securely to the client tab. And yeah, any question here again? So I will go with demo, so you will get, yeah, I will show in the demo everything like how it's happened. Okay, so let me go with demo. So what I will do, I have already one application. If I go to runtime manager, so I have a small application. Just simply currently there is a no authentication has been set up on this application. I will say no auth. Okay, and I will just send the request authenticated. So this request is authenticated without any, we haven't secured this API without any passing any authorization. It get authenticated. So this is not good thing. So how we can secure? So what we will do, we will use Okta as our OAuth provider, and we will secure this API, and we will going to use Okta client credential, and also we will see one demo with Okta authorization code. Okay, so let me start. So I will go to the Okta. So if you see, Okta provide a free account, a free developer account. You can create one Okta free developer account. Once you create the account, you get this domain on your email, and you can use this domain for your future, like learnings and all those things. So the first thing you need to check, like there's an authorization server. So once you create the account in Okta, you get one default authorization server. Okay, so you can click on this default authorization server. Okay, and like you click on this metadata URI. So this will provide like what is your token URL, what is your authorization endpoint, what is your JWT endpoint. So such kind of details provided in this particular metadata. So we will see how we will going to use this. Okay, the first thing we have to generate the client ID and the client secret. Okay, let me do one thing. I will define, no, you can define the scope also. So I have added the scope as a mule scope. Okay, so like you can also add the scope, whatever scope you need to define, you can define it even. Okay, now first thing we have to define the client ID and the client secret. So go to application, click on add application, then click on this web application, then click on next. So we will going to use the client credential flow. Okay, and like for client credential flow, I don't want any redirect URL or whatever, or base URI. I don't want all these URLs. Okay, MuleSoft client demo. Okay, and I will simply say done. Okay, yeah, this at least one URI. Okay, because we have select the authorization code, we need to provide one URI. So let me put http localhost. Yeah, because it's a mandatory field, and even like if you see, we cannot, this is gray out. 81 slash callback. Okay, so you can provide that and just simply say done. Once you click on the done, you will see at the end it provide the client ID and the client secret. I will paste it here. This is my client ID, and I will copy this also. This is my client secret. Okay, so we got the client ID and the client secret from Okta. Now next thing what we have to do, so we have to go to, like any point platform, we go to API manager. So basically we apply the policies from the API manager in the MuleSoft. Okay, go to version 1.0. go to policies, and you can say apply new policy. So what we can do, so if you see there is a jwks url might be available here. So this is JWK's URL. So we will use the JWT. Let me walk through the JWT policy. So basically JWT policy, because what happens, so when we will, it will give a JWT token back to us. Okay, that JWT token is formed with some RSA 256 algorithm. Okay, and we will going like it, like we need to set up like JWT origin. What is the signing method? So in this case, the signing method is RSA, and the what is the signing key length? That is 256. You can set up various parameters. So jwks url, so that is the one of the url where I have shown you on my screen, like we want jwks url where it can go and validate the token. So this is jwks url. Let me copy this url. Okay, and let me paste it here. So it will like it have a some encrypted string. Okay, so and it also show rsa 256. So this like this is the basically string which is used to generate the jwt token. So I will show you so how you can decode the jwt token also. Okay, so go to any point platform, search for jwt validation policy. Okay, 1.12 configure. So I mentioned like we will pass the JWT token in the header RSA 256. We will use JWKS URL. So copy that URL. Where is that one? Yeah, this is the URL. You can provide the JWKS URL. You can skip the client ID validation. I will tell you why. So rest of the parameters you can keep as it is. You know, you can apply. So I have applied the JWT validation policy. So now what we have to do, we have to secure this API, right? Let me send the request. The policy generally take 45 to 50 seconds to get reflect on your API. Okay, it required JWT token is required. So what you can you can in the Postman you can go to authorization. You can select OAuth2 and get new token. So and I will use the client credentials flow. Okay, so in this case like. What is access token URL? So let go to that metadata and search for like access token URL. This is my token endpoint. Go to Postman, provide the client ID and the client secret which we have generated in the first step. Okay, now say request token. Okay, let me this will be as a basic auth header. Just a minute. Yeah, I have to provide the scope, mule scope. It generate the token. Okay, so you can use this token and send the request. So this time the request has been authenticated. Okay, so let me copy this token and let me go to www.jwt.io. And you can decode token using this site. It will show like what are the what is the kid value, what is the algorithm in use, like what is the scope, and like what is the client ID, what is the expiry date for the token, when token is generated, what is the issuer URL. So such kind of detail. So this token has been generated using all these details. Okay, and like it also use some certificate. Okay, it has not been decoded. So yeah, so this is how it generated token. Now any question here? So I will then I will show you a second demo with authorization code. Okay, no question here. Okay, so let me go with the second demo. So what I will do, I will create one more application. I will say add application. I will say web. So let me I can use this base URI. I can remove it, or I can say mule auth demo. I can remove this URL. Instead of local 8081, I can say simply, o auth to authorization callback. I don't want any redirect URL. This time I will use the authorization code, and I will copy this, callback URL. And what I will do, I will say done. Okay, I will get new client ID in the client secret. I will, remove. I will keep it here. Okay. Now I will go there. Okay, and I will say get new access. Instead of client ID, I will say authorization code. The first thing, you have to provide the callback URL. The callback URL must be registered in the application of the Okta, otherwise it will not work. So same callback URL needs to be there. Okay, now I have to provide the authorized URL. So what for authorized URL, I will go to that same metadata and I will search for authorized URL. Okay, the token URL I already copy in the last step, so it's the same token URL. So I will say client ID in the client secret. Scope will remain same, and like you can say request token. 1 minute, the mistake here, we need to change something. Okay, and request token. We have to provide the state also in this case. Request token and like client body now requested. Okay, now here see it will pass for ask for username and password. It has redirect me to the resource owner. Now I will put my username and the password of the Okta. Okay, it gave me a token back. Okay, and I can use this token and send the request. So this time it was successful. Okay, so I can show you something like okay, what I can do, because it happened or everything in the background. So if you want to see in the front, I can show you. So what happens, so you can go to notepad and copy this URL. You can pass first a response type. This is the one parameter we need to pass. So I can say code and client ID equals to, I will copy the client ID from here. And can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, okay. I thought like okay, okay. So let me copy this. So how this happens, I will tell you. So like client ID is there, response type. Now I have to provide redirect URI. So copy the same redirect URI which I have configured in Okta also. Then you have to provide the state equals to whatever 1 2 3 4 5. That's fine. And scope is equals to mule scope. Copy this URL, go to Chrome and try to paste it this. See, it has written me, if you see, it has written me a code on my callback URL. You can see that, right? Okay. So let me show you complete flow. Like now let me copy this token URL again and let me go here and okay, and post some request. Okay, and the header. So under header you can pass content type equals to www URL encoded. Now we have to pass some parameters, which is client ID, client secret, then grant type equals to authorization code. Then you can pass state. Okay, then apart from that, you have to pass the redirect URI, the important parameter we need to pass as a code. Okay, so let me copy one by one parameter again. State I will use 123. Redirect URL, let me copy, better to copy it. And the authorization code we will generate it again with the URL because it get expire in 10-15 seconds itself. Okay, let me close this postman. There is some issue with my postman, so it caches some data. That's why. Let me close and open it once again. Okay, send the request. So the authorization code, okay, the authorization code is expired. That is correct error. So I need to generate because it just so we get the token back. See, and this is this is what happening in that background. The first it generate the authorization code, and that this same all everything like this just callback URL when we are sending in a token, it does nothing just for the validation purpose. Okay, the state, you got the state meaning, right? The state which we send during the authorization code, we have to send same state and the same redirect URI towards the for generating the token. Now you can see the token is generated, and you can use this token. Okay, I will use this token in the bearer header. Copy this, and instead of like I will in the authorization I will use no auth, and I will use the header. In header I will say authorization bearer, control V. Now send the request. So you got authenticated. If I do anything with my token, it will value invalid token. You got it right. So what is happening in the background? So I have just shown you through web browsers and Postman. Any question here? See, I'm not sending username the but you are not sending. See, because I'm already logging into Okta in my browser, right? So that's why it haven't asked me for the username, the password. Let me show you. I will sign out. Okay, and I will try to generate the authorization code again. Now I got sign out. Okay, and I will generate the authorization code. See, now it will ask me for username because it does a single sign on. If you are already logging into a browser, it will not ask for username and the password again. Now, as soon as it will redirect me to the callback URL again. See, it give me a code. Okay. Any other question? So I will move forward. Yes, yes, you can provide. You can use MuleSoft as a OAuth provider also. Okay, and you can go through. Like I have already published the video on that. You can search in the YouTube. We can find it that video. So how you can use MuleSoft as a OAuth provider. You can go through that. Okay. So let me go with identity management. Like we have gone through. Now we will see identity management. So how we can use Okta to log in into any point platform. So for that, let me go to the access management. So go to identity provider. In identity provider, you can use OpenID Connect. Okay, and say edit. Okay, and let me remove the pre. I will use the Okta. So copy this URL. This is very important URL, which this time we will use this as a redirect URL. Put create one application again. I can use same, but I generally create new web. Next, mule identity. Okay, and remove this URL and paste that URL which you have copied from the identity. So this is the basically redirect URL. I don't want logout URL. I just want authorization code. Done. Okay, copy this, paste it here, paste it here. Okay. Now what I can do, I can go to Mule Anypoint platform, and I can start copying this. Control V, the client secret. Okay, then see this URL, like you have to provide the issuer URL, authorized URL, so you can get everything from this metadata. This is my issuer URL, this is my authorization URL. Oh no, I already configured those. So let me go to Anypoint platform. You want token URL and the user info URL, so you can get it from here if you search user info. Okay, so basically you can get everything from here only. So for user info, what we does basically, okay, so sometime like you take this particular URL, and at the end you put user info. Okay, the token URL, authorization URL, you can get it from this metadata. Once you have done this configuration, just save it. Okay, and let me edit it. Just copy this URL up to this much. Okay, and like I will sign out. I will just paste this URL. Now this will redirect to Okta. Let me check, my user is basically disabled. Okay, so what I will do again, I will log with Anypoint platform. So yeah, my user is disabled, so let me enable it. Okay, so I will sign out again. I have URL, right? Okay, so I will sign out once again from the Anypoint platform. Okay, so let me okay, so I am able to log in into Okta because I am already logging into Okta. That's why it haven't asked me for the username and the password, because it does a single sign on. Okay, and I am directly logging into Anypoint. But the access and everything you need to provide it, right? Access and everything you need to provide it. Okay. So any question till now? Because before I start, like one more session. Okay. See, there are a lot of benefit when we are using OAuth provider MuleSoft as versus Okta. So basically, like, see, when you are writing the MuleSoft OAuth provider, right? Basically, you have to write your flows and everything. Like, it doesn't provide any screens from where you can do the management and everything. Like, once you have created client ID and the client secret, right? So you have to write that separate, APIs to retrieve client ID and the client secret. So you have to do the management, maintenance, everything, yourself. Okay, instead in Okta, like it provide everything, like you don't have to maintain authorization server, anything, like any whatever, like on the Okta, the maintenance and management is also become easy as compared to Okta, right? Even like MuleSoft also suggests, like, you should not use MuleSoft as a provider. You can use Okta, basically Okta or any third party provider, because as I mentioned, the management, maintenance, creating keys, retiring the client ID, client secret, it become easy, like, tracing if something is going wrong or no with client ID and client secret, we can, we get all logs and everything in the Okta. That's why. Just currently, see, I am not validating currently the scope which I have defined. It is for all right now, right now. Right, generally, you can define the scope for read, write, and whatever. And apart from that, in JWT, if you see in JWT validation policy, let me sign out. So there is a something like you can restrict on the basis of scope also when you use JWT. Let me show you. Go to API manager. So like here something is called validate custom claim. So in this I can say like this, scope, and like I can say where vars dot claim dot set, scope equals to mule scope. So basically it will start validating the scope also. Okay, so like I can add it like this. Okay, so like basically you can define the separate scope for read and write, so basically this whatever API falls under this, it can be the read only. The API falls under other scope, can be write only. Such kind of things can be done. And like you in JWT you can define this expression to, validate the scopes. Yeah, you can set up basically, there's a global setting, hello, can you see my screen? Hello, hello, can you hear me? Okay, somebody told my screen is froze, right? It's not like that, right? It is working, right? Okay, so basically, like, yeah, there is a global setting available from where you can retire yourself, like, that client ID and the client secret. Yeah, I will provide the link for my videos. Okay, I will do that. So let me go with other topic, which is very important and good topic. So can like here, like we have a various, that load balancer. So in the MuleSoft, so basically there's a dedicated load balancer and there is a shared load balancer. So basically, why we want dedicated load balancer and what is no shared load balancer? So basically what happens, so when you deploy the application over the port 8081 or 8082, okay, generally, by default deploy on the shared load balancer. Okay, whenever you deploy application every time, okay, it give a new URL, your application name dot slash, cloudup.io. If you deploy new application, your application name dot cloudup.io, like that. If you are deploying the 100 application, it will give the 100 DNS, right? So it's very difficult to manage, 100 DNS and all those things. Like, let's consider if you are at a bigger organization or enterprise, and they will say I want a single DNS, and from that single DNS I have to route to all the applications. So in that case, the dedicated load balancer come into the picture. In dedicated load balancer, what we can do, we can define a single DNS, okay, like api dev.example.com, okay, that will be used for each and every application. Okay, okay, that will be used for each and every application. So be like okay, so the first important thing for dedicated load balancer, okay, you need to create a VPC. Without VPC you cannot create a dedicated load balancer. So if you go to any point platform, and if you go to API, sorry, runtime manager, okay, and here you can see the load balancer. So here it asking, like, first you need to create a VPC before you creating the load balancer. If you say create VPC, So in VPC, basically, you have to give the name. This is a cider block. So cider block is very important. Apart from for which environment you are creating the load balancer, then there's a firewall rule. This firewall rule is important. So basically, what does this firewall rule mean? So there is a http dot port, https dot port, http dot private port. So generally 8091 and 8092 is the http private port. So basically these port are dedicated to your VPC. So whenever the request come on the load balancer can transfer the request to the application running on port 08 port 8091 or 8092. So but if your application want to accessible via shared load balancer, it needs to be deployed on 8081 and the 8082. So currently this is the firewall set. You can change it, but right now this is what the firewall settings are. Okay, the by default. So what will happen if you deploy the application on 8091? So request will come on dedicated load balancer, and like dedicated load balancer will transfer the request to the cloud hub application, and the cloud hub application will process the request and send response back. Let consider you have deployed the application on 8081, and that is the HTTP port. In that case, you will if you try to send the request to load balancer and load balancer will send the request to the cloud hub, no, it will not send. It will not get the application because load balancer is within the VPC, and for VPC there's a two ports 8091 and 8092. So you need to deploy application on 8091 and 8092. Okay, so so there is very important thing I want to explain you. So basically how the request route, when the request come on dedicated load balancer, how it route the request to the cloud of application. So first thing, you need to deploy the application on 8091 or 8092. So 8091 is the HTTP or 8092 is the HTTPS. Okay, so basically what happened, the client sent the request to the dedicated load balancer. Let me move in the present mode. This is the first use case. So where like I'm getting the request on https epidev.example.com slash e-commerce slash version 1.0 slash invoice. This is the request I'm getting on my dedicated load balancer. Now dedicated load balancer has to transfer the request to the https or hyphen e-commerce hyphen api dot cloudhub.io slash version 1.0. So basically what happens, this is my application name deployed in the cloud hub. So basically you can say it's a shared load balancer also. So this is my application name, okay, deployed in the cloud hub. So now the request is coming here and I have to transfer to here. How I can do that? So basically there are something called dedicated in load balancer mapping rules. You can apply those mapping rule. So in that case what happen, client will send the request to dedicated load balancer. The dedicated load balancer will apply mapping rule and it will change that API dev.example code to or commerce API cloud.io to slash invo and the send. So how it's work, I will in on next thing I will show you. Okay, so but what will happen? Okay, so in this case what is happening, you like you apply some rule. I will tell you what rule you applied and the application name become like that. Okay, so basically there are three parameters. So one is something like app, and like there's a target app, okay, and the output protocol. Okay, so in this app the request like API dev or e-commerce. So API dev ecom example.com slash e-commerce. So what will happen, my app name will become e-commerce. This is my app name. So in dedicated, what I can do, I can define like app as a parameter. Okay, and the target app I can like this. Now what I want, org hyphen API dev. So target app is should be like this, org. I can say org and I can say app and API. So in this case, the like your app will be the e-commerce. So the application name, when it will route the request, the application name will become org e-commerce hyphen API. Okay, so that is how we can define these rules in the dedicated load balancer, okay, to route the request. This is the first use case. Let me show you second use case. 1 minute. This is use case one. So the now here the problem is that like what happens. So basically you have a one VPC. On one VPC you have a two dedicated load balancer. One is like two DNS. One is for transferring request to test, and one is for transferring request to the development environment. So how you can do that? So in first case, they, it's a straightforward. So basically you don't have to do the request transfer on the basis of environment. But in the second, you have to do the request transfer on the basis of environment. Then your rule will become like this: slash app org hyphen app hyphen, sorry, a subdomain, a dash subdomain. So in that case, what will happen? So this is my request is coming api dev dot example dot com slash e-commerce. So the app will be the e-commerce. What is the subdomain? Subdomain is like reserve keyword, which is the api dev. So this is my always subdomain. So this will form application name as a org hyphen e-commerce hyphen api dev. So now consider if the request is coming on api test dot example dot com. In this case, what will happen? The request will be like this: org hyphen e-commerce hyphen api test. So now we have solved the problem of transferring the request to the environment, to the proper environment, right, using this subdomain keyword. Now let's consider if you want like to, now there's a one request. We have a multiple version of application. Okay, so now subdomain we have fixed that issue, the environment wise. Okay, now we have to transfer the request on the basis of version also. Okay, so let's consider like I can show you. Okay, so in this case, what will happen? Like if you see my input URL. Okay, my input URL is like this. I'm getting the request API dev example.com slash e-commerce slash version 1.0 slash invoice. Okay, so this is my request. Okay, now I want to transfer the request like this: org e-commerce API dev version v hyphen zero. So here it's a dot, and but I have to transfer because why? When we deploy the application on the cloud hub, it doesn't support dot. It support hyphen. That's why the application name is formed like this. So what will be the rule for that? So this is the rule: slash app. So v1.0 is there, right, in the application path. So v, so one is version A dot, zero is version B. Now org app subdomain hyphen v. Now version A is one. Now I have convert dot to hyphen here. I'm not using a dot hyphen, and the version B. Okay, so this is how you can apply the rule. So now application name will become org hyphen e-commerce hyphen API dev hyphen v1 hyphen zero if it is test, or or e-commerce hyphen API test v1 hyphen zero. So this is how you form the various dedicated mapping rule. So you can apply the various mapping rule. Okay, you can add the multiple mapping rule, but it will always use the first match mapping rule in that list. Okay, so this is how you can set up the rules and everything. So see, I have the all the videos and everything in this PPT. So let me paste it to for on the chat. No, like basically there are the MuleSoft basic license provide two VPC. Okay, so one for non-prod and one for prod. So like you can have a multiple like load balancer on one VPC, I think. Okay, like now I've shown like you have a test and a dev. Okay, so apart yeah, so you provide, generally we get prod and different non-prod. So generally you have to segregate. So you cannot keep the one VPC. So you can have a one VPC for dev and test environment. You can have one VPC for the production environment. Okay, any question here? So before I close this webinar, anything or anything would you like to? I will just copy this. Anything would you like? Any question or just I'm pasting for you. So recording will be available in next 1 or 2 days. So on the website of apsero.com, you can go on the website and you can get the recording from there. Okay. So I will close the session. Okay, and thanks for joining the session.